It is the world-famous weather for Weather Geeks. It's the Mahoning and Shenango Valley's most detailed, geeky video, at least when it comes to the weather. Hopefully you usually tune in on 21 at 6 o'clock for 21 News. Maybe not this evening, though. We had a terrible newscast with a lot of technical difficulties. Thankfully, the weather part of it was just fine, but we had a hard time getting video to play, and whenever you have a newscast that's very reliant upon video to roll packages and long reports, when that's not working, it causes some problems, and we had a heck of a time getting through that newscast. So apologies if you tuned in for that little bit of a car crash, but we got through it, and we'll have a better show tonight at 11. All right, on this Halloween evening, if you have a fear of clouds or nephophobia, well, you didn't like today. It was a pretty cloudy day. It was cloudier than I thought it would be, actually. We had a band of stratus and stratocumulus clouds that kind of set up shop for a lot of the day today, keeping a lid on temperatures. Speaking of cold, cryophobia, that's the fear of cold. If you have chionophobia, the fear of snow, well, you may not be real happy with the forecast for tomorrow morning. I'm going to talk about that a little more in just a second. But on this final day of October, let's run through the stats real quick. It'll go into the record books as the 9th warmest October on record. Remember, for most of the month, we were in first place for the warmest October on record. But the recent cool snap, including 7 of the last 8 days being cooler than average, definitely knocked us back several pegs, but still pretty warm October, 5.9 degrees above the average. Really neat here. Here's the precipitation. We were exactly at average. Our average October precipitation is 2.77 inches, and that is exactly what we got at the airport in the month of October. We had a dry stretch in the middle of the month from the 17th through the 22nd, but otherwise we had fairly frequent bouts of precipitation. Nothing all that heavy. Our wettest day was on Sunday the 8th. We had 0.64, but we didn't have 1 inch in any day, and that's not real surprising. October tends to be one of our more benign months when it comes to precipitation events. We don't have the juicy air like we have back in the summer to produce some real heavy rain events. All right, so as we go into the month of November tomorrow, of course, it's the final month of meteorological autumn, and the averages dropping quickly at this time of the year. From November 1st through the end of November, the average high drops 13 degrees. By the end of November, our average high is down to a paltry 42. So, yeah, it's that time of the year. But here's a look at the November forecast. I told you we'd talk about this this evening. And here it is. We're talking about what is likely to be another warmer than average month in the month of November. Of course, that's nothing new. We've had a lot of months like that over the last 2 years. So I'm expecting another month like that in November. Now, will it be as far above average as October? I think that's unlikely. Can't rule it out, but I think it's unlikely. I think instead of 5 or 6 degrees above average, it might be a month where we're 2 or 3 degrees above the average. The cold will be bottled up for a lot of the month, and it looks like a really cold month compared to average in parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, heading down into parts of the Dakotas, around Montana, Idaho. Yeah, a real cold month compared to average up there. This map may look familiar to you if you watch my winter forecast tomorrow night. There may be some similarities for the winter forecast to the November forecast. Now, as far as how much precipitation, I'm expecting a wetter than average month for a change. We haven't said that in a while. We've had, of course, some dry months lately. This month was rated average, but August and September were pretty dry, so was July, actually. And I'm expecting November to be a stormier month with more frequent bouts of precipitation, drier than average down towards the Gulf Coast, and pretty wet out west with that colder weather pattern. All right, back here in the near term, what we're going to be keeping an eye on as we go through the next 12 hours is, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Let's grab this. Is this little system out here. Doesn't look like much, and it isn't much, but it's going to head our way, spreading moisture our way, and temperatures tonight will get cold enough that we've had to talk about some frozen precipitation tomorrow morning on the first morning of November. Here's how things should play out. High-res futurecast. This is probably a little too fast spreading in the precipitation, but I think this is looking okay, reasonable, by about mid-morning, like 8, 9 o'clock. You see these blotches of blue? Yeah, I think there's going to be some wet snow. And it might even just snow in some locations for a while. There may not be a mix in some locations for a time anyway. It may just flat snow. Now, it's not going to stick to much. Certainly not the roads. It may stick to your car windshield and that sort of thing, but you know, I think mixed in with this green, we could have some bouts of wet snow tomorrow morning. This will probably end as just a cold, chilly rain around midday tomorrow. Not a very nice start to the day tomorrow, that is for sure. It's been a long time since we've seen snow across the valley, of course, so over 200 days, I believe, since we've had our last measurable snow. All right, again, low impact. This is not the graphic I wanted. I did this last night, too. Let me get rid of that and bring in the graphic I wanted to show you. It's this one. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This isn't a winter storm. It's a nuisance. That's not it either. Where's the graphic I want to show you? Bear with me for just a second here, if you would. This one. These all look kind of the same, so I keep grabbing the wrong one. It's the travel impacts. Minimal travel impacts for tomorrow morning. Yeah, the visibility can be reduced in the snow, but the main roads will be wet. Most of the secondary roads will just be wet. Real low-traveled roads. Could there be a little slush for a while? Maybe. But again, it's just going to be a conversational thing. Hey, it's snowing for the first time in a long time. All right, the month of November is our fifth snowiest month, climatologically speaking. We get about 8.8% of our average annual snowfall during the month of November. Of course, things really ramp up as we get into December and January, but we typically see some measurable snow during the month of November. All right, as we go through the next couple of days, warm front's going to be tracking our way. Again, we have our little wintry mix tomorrow morning, and then that warm front comes in tomorrow evening, and by that point, it'll certainly be warm enough just for rain. Temperatures will actually keep rising tomorrow night, out of the 40s into the 50s. It'll be in the mid-50s as you wake up Thursday morning, and we'll get into the 60s Thursday afternoon with clouds and maybe a few peaks of sun. I think the only chance for rain Thursday is in the morning hours, and Friday is kind of the same idea. The only chance for rain Friday, I think, is pretty early in the day with this cold front. It's kind of a good news, bad news situation for Friday. The good news is we'll get the rain out of the way. The bad news is it's going to get colder behind this front. Temperatures will hold steady and even slowly fall down probably close to 50 by sunset Friday evening. So a bit of a roller coaster ride. Computer models, rainfall totals over the next couple of days. Not sure what the NAM is doing there in the orange, keeping us dry Thursday and Thursday night. Don't think that's right. You can see that there's a general model average here of maybe 1/3 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. The models have been terrible lately with rainfall totals. They've been overdone. So I would cut some of these in half. I think 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/3 of an inch, will about do it as far as rainfall totals through Thursday night. Models are having a hard time lately with precipitation amounts. All right, winter forecast tomorrow evening. 21 News at 6 and 11. That'll be a 3-minute TV version. I won't have a lot of time to really explain things in that version, so that's why for the 3rd or 4th straight year, I'm going to do a much longer version here online. Probably do a Facebook Live tomorrow evening and post that to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and my blog and WFMJ.com and the Storm Tracker 21 app. You'll be able to find it. We'll do it live, but we'll record it as well so that you can watch it later. That version will have much more in the way of detail. If your business depends on wintry weather, if you operate snowplows and plow for a living during the winter, and you have a lot of other wintertime weather interests, you'll want to definitely watch out for that video tomorrow evening. We'll have a lot more detail and a lot more of the why we're forecasting what we are forecasting. Last winter, a little deceiving. The numbers were a little deceiving last winter. 69 inches of snow is actually just a hair above average, believe it or not. And that's because December and March were snowy last winter. January and February were not, but it'll go into the record books as a slightly snowier than average season, despite how ridiculously snow-free and warm it was in January and February. 5.4 degrees above average last winter, very similar to the previous winter. We've had 2 warm winters in a row. Will we make it 3 in a row? Well, here's kind of the secret sauce. I'll talk about this more, of course, in detail tomorrow. How do we come up with these seasonal forecasts? It's not like forecasting for the next couple of days. On the seasonal scale, you have to do this differently. We rely on what we call analogs. Those are years in the past with similar conditions in the atmosphere and in the oceans. Pay a lot of attention to especially the Pacific Ocean, what the water temperatures are like, because that can impact what the jet stream is going to do. We, of course, look at the computer models. Computer models, sometimes they do okay, sometimes they don't. And some of this relies on experience and intuition. There's a little more of an art. It's kind of a mix of an art and a science when it comes to these seasonal forecasts. A forecast for tonight and tomorrow and 3 days from now, that's pretty science heavy. There's a lot of science that goes into these seasonal forecasts, but there's a little bit of an art factor in it as well. And some of it has to do with experience and intuition, not falling into the same traps as you have before. I fell into a trap last winter. Our forecast was fine in December. We talked about December being pretty cold, but in January and February, the forecast went off the rails. And so I like to think that we learned some things from that we can apply to this winter, and I'll talk about that in much more detail tomorrow evening. So a special edition of Weather for Weather Geeks tomorrow evening. We'll get back to these regular versions that you're used to on Thursday. In the meantime, I've babbled long enough. Hope you have a great Tuesday night. Happy Halloween, and I'll see you back here on the first day of November.